We welcome you to this memorial for our friend Phil Blazer. Phil was first and most a mensch, a good person, a loyal friend, good family member, good husband, father, grandfather, and a great Zionist. And we mourn his loss, and we'll feel his loss in our community. But he's left an incredible legacy of wonderful deeds that he accomplished in his life here in this world. We start first with the 23rd Psalm, a Psalm of David. A Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Adonai roi lo echsar binot sheyarbitzeini al mei menuchot yenaleini nafshi yeshovev yancheini v'magalei tzedek yancheini v'magalei tzedek leman shemo gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishonetecha hema yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai dieshanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya achtov vachesed hirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavati beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar.
Phil is a unique person, very modest, very humble. I don't remember him ever talking about himself. It's always the cause. It's always, who can we help?
People trust him. They trust his humility. He's not really in it for glory. He's really in it for the mission of education and outreach.
One of the main things that draws people to Phil is his zany kind of deadpan humor. I was going to either be a professional baseball player or a Zionist. I went to Israel when I was 17, so it killed the baseball career.
He found a way of expressing positive things about the Jewish community and the Jewish culture.
My dad, first and foremost, is a person who cares about others. He wants people to be happy, to be safe, and to reach their potential.
I played in the Van Nuys High School baseball. My dad had an offer one day from the coach. Can my dad host the team for a practice? My father was called over by another coach from a different high school, and I could hear the guy screaming at my dad, "You have to leave the field." And my dad said, "Why?" He says, "Because you're a dirty Jew." And I was standing next to my dad. I never forgot it. After that moment, I was ready to go. My first entree into the field of activism came when Otto Miller, the chairman of the board of Standard Oil, said that the United States is too pro-Israel. I went on television and announced, "It's time to rip up your credit card. Send them in to me and I'll take it to Otto Miller." My first activism was on the Walker Cronkite CBS Evening News.
Join me for my regular CBS News report on the big news here on Channel 5.
Not bad, not shabby. Thousands of credit cards cut in all shapes and forms. Jewish stars cut in the middle of the card.
"25 or 30 members of a ragtag Nazi party in Chicago want to parade through Skokie."
When he went to Skokie to fight the Nazis as they were marching in some of the larger survivor communities in the United States, he was doing it before organizations, before other prominent individuals were doing it.
Skokie was a turning point for me. One of the great reactions I was able to cause was getting the survivors a platform to speak.
We are good Americans. We are concerned about what's happening in this country. And I can tell all of you that on July 9th at the Nazis' march in Marquette Park, hundreds of Californians will be here in Chicago.
The next morning after returning with my group to Los Angeles, there was a big swastika painted on my house, the size of this garage door.
He had his window shot out of his car. We're not sure exactly who did it.
Phil gets this call from some crazy Nazi who says, "I'm gonna shoot you Tuesday." And he says, "Well, Tuesday's a bad day for me."
When I came back from Skokie, some survivors told me that, "Why don't they teach us in the school about the Holocaust? There's no regulation, why not?" Richard Katz's Phil Blazer bill made it a regulation for school systems in California to teach the Holocaust, period. Eventually, other communities passed the bill. States have voted to make it mandatory to teach the Holocaust.
In the mid-'80s, there was a devastating famine in Africa. It was affecting Ethiopia and Sudan. The Ethiopian Jewish community was caught in the midst of that. Not only were they suffering the famine, but they were suffering from prejudice and discrimination.
There was about 15,000 Jews that were brought to Israel via Sudan. What happened was the operation ceased.
And hundreds of Jews were left behind in Sudan, languishing, dying of starvation. My father single-handedly really created an opportunity for those Jews to be saved.
I went to Washington basically to beg the United States to rescue the Jews that were left, the 500. I was asked to write a letter. The letter was taken to all the senators. In 35 hours, it never leaked. Every senator signed the document. Everyone. Guess who called? The Vice President of the United States. And what did George Bush say on the phone? "Phil," he said, "in 45 minutes, 500 black Jews will be landing in Israel."
father was able to cultivate relationships with Israeli leaders, people of all political backgrounds within Israel.
I was going already to Israel several times, and I admired Menachem Begin for not giving up. He continued to run second place, and how did I help that? I invited him to speak at a gymnasium at Valley College in Los Angeles. Guess what happened? Begin became prime minister. Unbelievable. My friend becomes prime minister of Israel, and all of a sudden, I have power, political power.
He could talk to Sadat, he could talk to Arafat, he could talk to some of the Arab leaders, and they would listen to him, be willing to talk to him, where an Israeli politician couldn't do that. He had a big part in enhancing the relationship between Israel and the United States.
Begin called me personally and said, please bring Hollywood to Israel. The soldiers need to get a pat on the back. They're despondent over having to be in a war. I got Jane Fonda. That was a very successful trip because people wouldn't have expected Jane Fonda, a quote-unquote liberal, to come to Israel. And then Vidal Sassoon was a friend of mine, Mr. Shampoo and hairstylist. Says, how about Elizabeth Taylor? Elizabeth Taylor agreed. We were on the way to Sharon's ranch, and it was a bad accident, frankly. I got stitches, and she got a neck brace. And Arik says, what can I do for you? You're the only one really hurt. I said, I want a pair of dry socks. And that's how the socks became an item. Probably could start a new company, Arik Socks.
He took people to Israel constantly. He made it affordable for people. He made it accessible. He envisioned and talked about birthright long before it ever became a reality. And he recognized that if young people had an opportunity to travel to Israel, that it would help shape their Jewish identity. His accomplishments within the world of media, they're unique from the standpoint of his belief that the Jewish community should have every media opportunity that every other community has.
I hosted a jazz program on KVFM, the local FM station in the San Fernando Valley. That's how I got into radio. That station was owned by Jerry Lewis. I mean, every time I walked forward or backward, it was something Jewish. It was mystical.
That was the impetus for him to be able to then ask for time to do this Jewish radio hour.
The show that we worked together on, Israel Today, for so many years, it was a 1-hour show. Phil was handling the English part, I was handling the Hebrew part. It started here in Los Angeles, but slowly went to like 40-some cities. And it had a great audience, not only Jewish audience, but general audience.
When I got started working with Phil, his show was called The Phil Blazer Show. He'd been doing it for over 10 years at that point, in 1989 when I started. We did a show every week, and we were always looking for new, interesting topics in the Jewish community to cover. We probably did, from the time I started until recently, some in the neighborhood of 1,500 television programs.
At that moment in time, I realized the next step for me is a full-fledged television network. Jewish Life Television.
On JLTV, you can find comedy, history, you can find the connection to Israel and the Jewish ancestral homeland. People walk away with appreciation and inspiration.
One of the great events that we've been able to cover on JLTV that my father was passionate about was the Maccabeah, because he loved sports. He loved the fact that young people from around the world got to come to Israel, got to experience Israel.
Shalom and welcome to the Golden City of Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish homeland. What a night.
I remember at the Maccabeah games, one of the more recent league games, was somebody that stood up and said in perfect English, I was born and I live in Mongolia. I thought it was a joke. But sure enough, this young athlete came to Israel to participate in the Maccabeah games all the way from Mongolia. If that's not an example of brotherhood, sisterhood, I don't know what is.
The optimism that Phil has is stunning and actually something that we all need to be able to relate to.
I don't know what it is that makes a person like Phil see things in the positive light, but it's a gift, and he recognizes it as a gift.
He always made sure that regardless of the political side that someone was on, that there was no excuse for there to be anti-Semitism or prejudice of any kind. So he was always motivated not by political orientation or religious affiliation.
This is a man who found his center and his passion in his people, and he did everything he could. He found so many avenues to express that and to share it.
Phil is one of the only individuals that I know that made his entire life about Jews, Israel, and important causes.
There are few people who have really done as much in their lifetime with regards to all the things he's accomplished in both his television show, his radio, his newspaper.
It wasn't me. It was me and friends. God granted me an opportunity to speak out. We have a job, and the job is helping the non-Jewish people and simultaneously helping the Jewish people help the non-Jewish people. It's wonderful. And everything grows. Never give up. That's a slogan, a motto, but never give up. I see goodness, and I'm happy. I'm not crying because I'm upset. I'm not crying because things are bad. I'm crying because so much good has happened. So much good.
Over the many years that I've known Phil and his family, Phil has been an ardent Zionist, a great supporter of the State of Israel. And here at Stephen S. Wise Temple, his relationship with Rabbi Zeldin in particular was to be noted. Rabbi Zeldin respected Phil and tried to help as best he could to help Phil with his agenda, because the agenda was a larger one, the State of Israel, and being a supporter of our homeland. The song I have chosen to sing is called Eli, Eli, written by Hannah Senish, a very famous young lady who perished in the Shoah, who made Aliyah to Israel, and from there was sent back into the enemy lines and paratrooped back into Czechoslovakia and was later killed. She wrote these words when she saw the ocean in Caesarea. And so I'm singing this song in honor of the State of Israel and Phil's relationship with its people and its beauty. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol vehayam, rishrush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, hachol vehayam, rishru shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat adam. O God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
We had a beautiful, very intimate family service today at the graveside, and we missed you all there, but we hope that these next few days give us all an opportunity to share our moments together, and that the culminating, event, which will be the memorial that the wonderful producers at JLTV and all of you are going to contribute to, will be something that you can also share in the future. I wish I could give you all a big, big hug. I hope to do that very soon. I wrote some things down because it's very difficult to even find words for the many things I feel and want to say. But before I start, I want to thank our beautiful children, our grandchildren, our sisters and brothers-in-law, their mensches, all of them, and Phil's dedicated caregivers, Juliana and Rowena. They all did so much to make sure Phil lived these challenging months and final days in comfort, knowing he was deeply, deeply loved. I don't have words to express our gratitude for the outpouring of loving thoughts and memories of Phil coming from so many of you, from so many places whose lives he touched. So what can I say that hasn't already been said and that will be said in the coming days about this special person whose life I shared? I can tell you that Phil was a man of simple tastes and needs and great passion. He loved donuts and mashed potatoes, baseball and bubblegum, Dodger dogs with just a bit of mustard, and French dip sandwiches from Philippe's. He loved and cherished his family. But it was his dauntless passion for Israel and the Jewish people, and his drive to help anyone from any walk of life whenever he could, that is the thread that connects us all and that brings us together to celebrate his life. Phil had boundless energy. He was wicked, quirky, funny, super creative, and so spontaneous. From treks to find the 10 best pancake places in LA, to walking a massive camel, yes, Ari, you were there, thank you for making it happen, along Wilshire Boulevard to promote tourism to Israel, to creating unprecedented historical events that connected us with people and cultures from all corners of the world. Life with Phil was always an adventure. Even as his body was giving up, he fought to connect, to take action, and to make things happen. We all know that in different times, and if Phil had any hand in the matter, we'd all be together right now in the same place, people from so many walks of life, laughing, crying, hugging, in celebration of this incredible man. I am so fortunate and so enriched by the beautiful family we have, and by the amazing people like all of you that Phil has brought into our homes and our lives. When someone who's touched your life passes on, they leave behind an ache in your heart and a void in your world. But there are some rare and exceptional people who leave behind an ache in so many hearts. That void is a void in the entire universe. I believe Phil is one of those exceptional people. I also believe that the loving memories of Phil each of us holds will fill that void, and together we will carry his legacy forward for generations to come. I thank you so much, and I really, really look forward to a time when we can all be together.
My dad truly believed that taking risks and doing things that you truly believed in, that that it was ingrained in you to follow that passion and to do it wholeheartedly without any restraints, and to do it until your last breath.
I want everybody to remember something. Take this away, because I think about Ruach, the spirit that my dad had, and his spontaneity. I have these great memories that I have of just like, he took Mark and I to the airport one day and said, "Where do you want to go?" And we went to Arizona. We got on a plane very spontaneously and had an amazing trip. Before moving back east, he took me to New Mexico, and we just had such an adventure. You know, we went to these horse races in some godforsaken town in New Mexico. He just lived life to the fullest, and he was larger than life. And I think one thing we can remember is to do that, live with spontaneity, not too much planning, and because you'll experience the best adventures. And I feel very fortunate to have done that with my dad. He was such a hero and inspiration. And that's my message for this evening, is to go and live large. Thanks.
Shir Hamalot, Psalm 121, Esai. It's one of the most oftenly used psalms to comfort people and to inspire people. And here at Stephen Wise Temple on top of our mountain, Rabbi Zeldin, who was a great friend of Phil's, loved this psalm because of its relationship to the mountain and to Israel. And Phil loved Shlomo Carlebach's music. So this is a combination of Shlomo Carlebach and some Chazanut. So I'm reminded that when I was a teenager at Adat Ariel in North Hollywood, that Phil's father, Dave, used to come to services there. He loved Cantor Alan Michelson, my teacher. And when I became the Chazan Sheni, the assistant cantor there, at a young age, his father was very, very, very supportive of me and encouraged me. And so when Phil and I became friends, it was also because I had a connection with his family and his father in particular. So our eyes look to the mountains. From whence will our help come? Our help will come from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Esa einai el hei harim, me'ayin yavo ezri, ezri me'im Adonai, ose shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha, hine lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha, yom hamashemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmerecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam. Esa einai el hei harim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el hei harim, me'ayin Me'ayin Yavo Ezri.
I'm glad to say that I worked for Phil for 20 years, and every day was something new. He was amazing. I mean, he would come up with stuff that I don't know where it came from.
So I had the pleasure of working for Phil, obviously, for a long time. I started with him when I was a young man in 1989, and from there I worked for him for 27 years. And I certainly felt myself that he was like a second father to me, and I'd like to think he thought of me as a son at times. I was his right-hand man through so much, and I can honestly say that the best times in my life were spent right by his side. And he was a great man, and over all those years of working with him, I never saw much of a temper. He was always a kind man that was always laughing. He was just a very good person, and that's why I worked for him for 27 years. And one of the things we're working on now is to digitize all the interviews he's ever done that I hope someday will be an archive, and I would like to be a part of bringing him that immortality because he deserves it. And there is so much there for people to learn from in the future. So thank you, and my condolences to the great family.
You know, I started the LA Jewish Symphony in 1994, and I had contracted Theo Bickel to do a concert. And we were planning this concert, and Phil Blazer calls me and it says, I hear you're doing a concert with Theo Bickel. Well, I want to do a concert with Theo Bickel. Let's do it at the Greek Theater. I was like, wow, great. I mean, you know, I had just started the symphony. We had just been in synagogues and stuff like that. So the first big concert was with Phil at the Greek Theater with Theo Bickel. We went on, we did Lainie Kazan and Marvin Hamlish and Lionel Hampton and Pat Boone and Jeannie. That's when I first met Jeannie. And we were on the stage together at the Greek Theater. And 5,000 people, it was sold out. We did 3 concerts there. And Phil became the person who I went to for any advice I needed. His arms were always open.
But he really made me feel comfortable and gave me confidence and allowed me for people to hear my voice and my musical voice. And I am forever grateful for that. And made me feel at home here in Los Angeles. And I see that continuing with you, Mark, and your beautiful family. And I'm so glad to see them. And I'm hurting. I miss him.
One day Phil calls me and he says, listen, we have to do something about Israel, and we are going to choose the best modern vehicle in the country, and you and me are going to walk this camel down Wilshire Boulevard. And he invited a lot of media, and it was great, a great thing. I didn't believe that he will bring the camel, and the camel was there. He brought from somewhere. And we walked this camel down the street. We created a lot of buzz, and it was a very nice experience. I love Phil very much. I'm going to miss him. And Katie, we love you, and we hope to see you. Thank you.
You know, it says, of course, that he who saves one life saves an entire world. Well, in Phil's case, you know, he has saved galaxies. There's no question about that. He was a mensch. He was a dear friend. He was certainly a great humanitarian. The Jewish community has lost its staunchest supporter. We've all lost a loved person. And I'm fortunate that I can continue my relationship with Phil through Adam and Mark and Kathy, I hope. I'm honored to have been part of his dream. and he's dearly missed.
Phil was a manifester of miracles, and I have never met a man who was so light, so warm-hearted, and so funny and lighthearted. But when he decided he was going to do something, he was ferociously committed, and he taught me a lot. And I think we can all say that that in some way he's taught us something deeply human. About the human, story and our own story. And Phil is one of those few people, I'm just speaking for myself, that I really believe, he made me want to be a better human being. He just did.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman, and I join so many in mourning the passing and celebrating the life of Phil Blazer, Zichrono Livracha. Phil had chutzpah. He stood up to the Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois. He took on Standard Oil to protest its anti-Israel positions. And in 1985, he persuaded the United States government to rescue 1,000 Ethiopian Jews starving in Sudanese refugee camps. Phil was first and foremost a champion for the Jewish people and the State of Israel. His impact lives on every time someone turns on the network he founded, the Jewish Life television network, and learns something new about our culture and our history. To Phil's wife, Kathy, children, Rabbi Mark, Elisa, Adam, David, the grandchildren, and the entire extended family, you have my heartfelt condolences. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman.
Dear family, friends, supporters of the Blazer family, we all join together to mourn the loss, the great loss, of our beloved Phil Blazer, Zichrono Livracha. My name is Hillel Newman, and I'm the Consul General of Israel here in Los Angeles, representing the State of Israel to the southwestern region of the United States. And I can say with full confidence that I represent the people of Israel and the State of Israel, and now coming together and mourning the loss of Phil Blazer, Zichrono Livracha. What a loss to the Jewish people and the State of Israel. A man of tremendous achievements and great activism throughout his life. For so many, reminds me of Moses at the beginning of his leadership, when he stepped out of the palace and he saw an Egyptian attacking a Jewish individual, and he stood up to defend the Jew, not even knowing that he was part of that nation. Phil Blazer, throughout his career, stood up for Jewish causes, counted himself in, and led the way in representing the Jewish people, representing the State of Israel, and fighting for causes, whether it be fighting anti-Semitism, whether it be political work on behalf of Ethiopian Jewry, whether it be Soviet Jewry. So many causes, so much activism, and so many accomplishments. We stand and we salute the achievements of Phil Blazer, Zichrono Livracha, and we mourn together with the family. I understand that his name was Pinchas, his Hebrew name was Pinchas. Pinchas, just like Moses, is that type of individual who stood up and saved the people of Israel at a time of need, and then was granted the blessing of peace. We wish the family, Blazer family, a greeting of peace and long life, of deep roots and noble roots. Thank you.
As we remember all of Phil's good deeds and all the things that we accomplished, we are aware that we don't have everything in our hands, that many things that we think we've done are in the hands of the Almighty. And so Psalm 16, verses 8 through 11, reflect how we look to God and place our souls in God's hands. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini balhemot lachen samach libi vayagel kevodi af besari yishkon lavetach כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת, תודיעני אור החיים, אור החיים. סובה שמחות את פניך, נעמוד בימינך נצח. שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי מימיני
Hi, I'm Dina. I am the second oldest granddaughter or grandchild of my grandpa Phil. So I wrote a few words to share with you today. Growing up, going to Jewish day school, I truly felt like a celebrity. I would walk around school and people, mostly teachers, would come up to me and say, "Blazer, are you related to Phil Blazer by any chance?" And I would say, "Yeah, he's my grandpa." And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever to feel this special and this well-known. He truly made me proud to be Jewish. A memory I know I'll carry with me forever is getting to walk on the field of Dodger Stadium on Jewish Community Days and proudly hold up the Israeli flag. Not only was I proud to be Jewish, but I was even more proud to call the man who put this day together my grandfather. Many family members have spoken about how he was a child at heart, and he really was. I remember as little kids, me and my older sister Rachel would sit on his lap, one of us on each knee, and he would tell us the craziest stories about fairies and elves that he would make up on the spot just to make us smile. And how could we forget his theatrical birthday dinners at Marrakesh that got everyone smiling? My grandfather was truly an amazing man, and I know I will carry on his legacy and love of the Dodgers Jewish community and caring for all people. Thank you all for continuing to share your memories of my grandfather, because I'm learning so much about the impact he had in all of your lives as well.
Aside from being our brother, Phil was our hero. Although you would think him to be a shy person who would rather ignore confrontation, he was actually someone who took on seemingly impossible challenges. And he did so with such a determination to succeed that it nearly always led to success. He did so with a child's belief that if something is wrong, it can and should be fixed. He did so with an amazing ability to create something from nothing, nothing other than an idea or a cause or a need to right a wrong, or to teach people about Israel, or to help someone. He has left an indelible mark on those of us here tonight, as well as countless numbers of others who are reaping the benefits of his good works. Whether it's the student learning about the Holocaust because of the legislation he spearheaded, the Falasha living in Israel he was responsible for saving, the Holocaust survivor in Skokie who had his rallying of support for them, the corporate executive who learned not to mess around with support of Israel, the countless viewers of JL TV connecting with the Jewish world, or one of us who knew him, loved him, admired him, and who will miss him dearly.
Yeah, there are so many stories. I keep thinking, every time I would walk away, I would try to meet with Phil about once a week, and I would always walk away just amazed at the things he did and the influence that he had. But tonight, when we're talking about Israel, there are a couple of stories that come to mind, and many of you know that Phil was a very promising baseball player, and he thought he might become a professional baseball player. But then when he was 16, he went to Israel, and he said baseball as a career meant nothing after he was introduced to this beautiful country, and was so impressed with these Jews who had built so much so quickly. And he continued to have that pride in Israel.
The amount of joy that Phil Blazer brings to 45 million people every day through JLTV is what I see and read. I am the one who gets to read the feedback from our audience, and invariably Phil's name gets brought up because people know that it was Phil Blazer who had the vision, the fortitude, and the chutzpah to demand that the cable industry launch a Jewish-themed television network. And in a lot of ways, it's a miracle. It is an absolute miracle that Phil Blazer was able to do this.
The traditional memorial prayer of El Malei Rachamim is said to help the souls of those rise to Olam Haba, to Gan Eden. And so I chant this prayer, especially today on behalf of Phil's family, of his sisters Candace and Glory Ann and their families, his wife Kathy, 4 children by Mark, Alyssa, Adam, and David, and his 6 grandchildren. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechinah B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Rakia Mazehirim Et Nishmat Pinchas Ben David Bela Shehalach Le'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Bal העמים. הסתירהו בסדר גנבך לעולמים. וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום. על משכבו, ונאמר אמן.
Here's Jerry and I together. We both knew your dad so well, and Kathy and everybody were so, oh my God, this is a tremendous loss for the world. But what he gave to the world was education, pulling everything into one place, information. I mean, he really was so ahead of the game.
He was a champion for Israel and the Jewish people. He really was.
He really was. And we're so grateful to him for putting together that receptacle, that place. You know, what was interesting is that I would travel and people would say that they watch JLTV and they watch it all the time and it's their thing. And, you know, do not underestimate, never underestimate the reach and the power that JLTV has around the world. It is just, I mean, it was always stunning to me that people knew of the platform and were so happy, so grateful to have it.
Having this this virtual version of a Shiva is really meaningful. It's really impactful in the mourning process for me personally. Having spent the last 5 weeks in the room next door to Dad as he was kind of fading away and fighting with his illness, it's been really nice focusing on the many, many more positive days and experiences of his life. And I couldn't possibly do that alone. And I think even incubated as a family, it's hard to do that. So again, kind of echoing what I said last night, it's this whole process has underscored to me the value of the Jewish tradition of Shiva, and so thank you for being a part of that.
We conclude with a recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. The Kaddish is a reaffirmation of our faith in all that is good, and all the good that we leave behind us, and our faith in God. Especially as we approach this High Holy Day season, we pray for wholeness, completeness, and peace in the world, for ourselves, and for our families, and all humankind. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ba'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyom echon uv'chayeda chol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam U'Almei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shemei Dekudisha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen.
On behalf of our family, I want to thank you for joining us as we remember my father, Phil Blazer. I want to thank the hundreds of people who joined us on Zoom, Facebook, and social media platforms to honor his memory. For the numerous posts, the outpouring of love, from people who in some cases never met him, but watched and listened to him over the years. I can tell you that he was always so inspired by the messages and letters that he got from viewers and supporters from across the country, from around the world. He believed in the power of media to bring people together. And this miracle that is JLTV is proof of his vision. We want to thank all of you who have strengthened JLTV over the years. As we continue my father's vital work and legacy, please support the mission of JLTV through the Jewish Life Foundation, the nonprofit established 21 years ago to make this vision a reality. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. May Phil Blazer's memory always inspire us, and may he continue to be a blessing.